Hello, everybody. Everybody hear me okay? Great. I
Yes.
recognize a couple of names from earlier sessions. So yeah, let me give you a little background about my molecular modeling background. I've been teaching 32 years. Actually, I just retired in May, but I have three more grants I'm working on, and they all deal with molecular visualization. Uh, I started off back in the old days on silicon graphics terminals, buying $3,000 software to actually display molecules. And now, of course, everything is free, openly available on the web. It's just totally phenomenal. I've gone through a lot of iterations. So after the commercial software, I started using Rasmo and then Chime. And Chime I used to create tutorials. So I'd have like 80 tutorials on web tutorials. You'd click a button and then up would pop the molecule, and then you could change the rendering, do whatever you wanted. Of course, that changed. That went away and was replaced by JMOL. And eventually JMOL, so I had to change everything during that transition. And then I went from JMOL, well, we all know we had to go to something that was JavaScript based, so I morphed to JSMOL. But then I've been working with LibreTexts a long time, my biochem text, and the idea is how do you insert proteins in there? It's not just showing, that's just like a pretty picture. It's so easy to insert a molecule, it's just a pretty picture. So in doing that, I adopted yet another software program, which I think is super easy. So actually, that's what I'd like to talk a little bit about the ways to embed molecules, but mostly proteins, nucleic acids. The thing is, when you get big molecules like proteins or nucleic acids, there's, we experts that know these things embed so much information in the visualization that we often forget that the students, look at it and what's implicit to us needs to be made explicit to them, and who knows what they get. It takes a long time to develop those. So, I mean, molecular models, I think, are really, really critical to help, especially with complex things like proteins. At the same time, we have to be careful on how much we use, I think.
Right.
So I thought what I do was share my screen and just walk you through a couple of things I've created and using in the LibreText in terms of putting molecules in. And it'll take a couple of minutes. And then I do have a web page, a Microsoft Word document I can send you the link to that has the instructions generally how to do that. And then I thought what we could do is either you could try it on your own on some of the web pages you've already created, or if you have specific questions, I might be able to help. Well, I can say I've been doing this many, many, many years. And I still run into troubles when I'm trying to actually get the rendering I exactly want. So I got a lot of stuff on my screen, so I'm going to see if I can find what I'm looking for. Okay, can everybody see my screen? Yeah, okay. So first of all, I'd like to draw your attention to basically that there's a chapter in the construction guide on interactive elements. So it walks you through, and you've probably been through a couple of these today in terms of more detail. But there's a section on interactive molecules and protein directly embedding them in. I want to talk a little bit about this one, interactive molecule and protein. There's a molecule generator that gives you a little bit more control of what gets embedded into the protein, into your web page. And then there's the interactive molecule and protein thing. I'm going to talk a little bit about what I do, because since I've been doing this, I've brought in IC and 3D. So I wanted to, so you can get all this information, what I'm going to talk about really quickly here, interactive molecules and protein direct embedding, through chapter 5.5, and here it is. So what you need to do, like, here's a model. It's a GL-MOL model, and you see you can rotate it. It has, rendering. You can see secondary structure. You color code it any way you want. Here's a ligand bound. It's really easy to do this. So what you have to go through is go to a site called Molecular Generator, which is again within LibreTexts, and basically put in, and you could easily do this right now if you wish to. If you go to the chapter section in this construction guide, and I'm on 5.5. I suppose what I could do is put the link into the chat box so you don't have to worry about it too much. So I'll put the link into the chat box. All right, so let me go back to chat box. This always takes me a while to figure out. It's harder to do, I think, when for some reason I always struggle to do this when I'm sharing my screen. You can just go to the construction guide, you can find it yourself. But what you do is essentially you can put in any molecule you'd like. And there's a drop down here. So you're sharing your screen. So I can't manipulate this when I'm sharing my screen. I'm going to redo this again. So when I'm sharing my screen, I can't seem to be able to do it. But if you pull this up, all you have to pull up is a drop down here. And you can type in a name like caffeine, or you can go, if you're interested in pulling up a protein, you can pull up a PDB file if you know the number and simply put it in here. And then you go to a new screen that essentially allows you to change the rendering. So you can change heteroatoms, ligands bound, for instance, or water molecules. You can change those to, I always like seeing them as sphere in many of these representations. You know, you can enable spinning, you can do all kinds of things. When you go through this, you then basically create a script that you can just simply copy and paste. And you go to your web page, you just go to Style Decky Scripts and paste in the script, and then that's all there is to it. So I do believe I have, let's see if I can find it. Here's one example of what that looks like. So I just took one of my web pages and embedded these two molecules. And this was the default that the molecule generator makes. And this is the one that I made. It happens to be a protein I study. So I made the ligand space fill, and I color coded based on secondary structure. So alpha helices in this case are purple, and the beta structure is cyan. So this is so easy, but personally, when I look at this, it's like, okay, you could write text underneath here if you wanted to that would describe what you're seeing. And then at some point, after students become a little bit past the novice stage, they should be able to know what they're seeing. But there's not much you can do. Like if you can right click on here, there's no way you can interact with this molecule other than just by sort of, you know, spinning it or looking at it like this. So what I've done to bypass that is I've gone to, I'm going to go back here. I've created my own pages using something called ICN3D. And this program, I had Delmar and Henry put this into LibreTexts a year ago or so. This is made by the NCBI, National Center for Bioinformatics. And I talked with these people when I went to an experimental biology meeting. And I'd never heard of it before. And I've used all these other programs, but they say that ICN3D is basically part of basically the structure of this resource, NCBI. And by law, it's required to be there. I've had so many times in which the programs I use are no longer available on the web because you got to change like the JavaScript and everything changes, and you're constantly relying on the goodwill of people like Bob Hansen to work JavaScript for JSMol at the speed of light to keep doing it. But theoretically, this is available and will constantly be updated as long as the NCBI is in business. So I just want to show you some of the things you can do with this. And I have, after I finish sharing my screen, what I'll do is put in the link to a Word document I have, and then you can try these on your own. I'm just going to simply show you what I've done. So one of the things that I'd like to do is not show the whole molecule. So what I did here is I took a little bit of triose phosphate isomerase, which has a parallel beta strand, beta barrel. And essentially, I just took the amino acid sequences that were involved in that and essentially plugged it in into ICBN, a program which I can actually show you in a second, and then basically had the program, after I rendered it the way I wanted, I simply say, I want to know the commands I use to get this rendering. And then I found the commands. You simply can type in a command basically to show them. And I cut them, paste them into the ICN3D template, which is really easy to install as a template in LibreTexts. And you can see that you can rotate this, but on top of it, there's interactivity here in which you can do other things in addition to what you see. So I find it, so I personally wanted a rendering just showing like super secondary structures. So some motif, not the whole protein, and you can see the hydrogen bonds that are shown there in dotted green lines. Another thing for anyone working with proteins and enzymes is you want any protein that binds the ligand, which is pretty much everything, you want to see what's around the ligand. What are the intermolecular forces or non-covalent interactions that interact with the ligand? So I made a really quick one here, and you might say, oh, there's not many amino acids around here, but this is MES, which is methane, ethane, sulfonic acid that binds to a phosphatase. And you can see here's the sulfate group. And it's really easy to create a rendering in ICN3D. ICN3D stands for I can see in 3D, by the way. You can label the residues. These are just active site water molecules, and you can see the interactions. So it's really pretty slick. You can do really cool things too, like this is an example of just a peripheral membrane protein. As a proteins, you can have membrane proteins. They can be transmembrane, peripheral. And explaining to students sometimes is a little tricky, but this is a simple rendering, just really simple rendering, and this is the surface of the bilayer right here. And it's just represented as little dots, but still gives you a rendering for the bilayer. This takes 2 seconds in IC3D to make this, and then you plug in the code into the template and you're done. I mean, it's really literally, it takes like a minute to create this. And finally, here's an example of a G protein coupled receptor. So here, this is clearly, you can see the extracellular domain up here, and then you can see where the membrane is. And this is the transmembrane serpentine, 7 transmembrane helices. Here is the agonist, and this is the GS protein involved in this complex. One of the cool things about ICN3D is that you can put huge structures in there, viruses, ribosomes. Sometimes the page takes a little while to load. I was just going to show you, if I go to I'm going to go to ICN3D and just show you how simple this is. I'm going to go to ICN3D. And literally, I'm going to put in a molecule. You can put in any molecule. Okay, I'm going to put in a really simple one. I just happen to know the code for it. So can I do this here? Yeah, here we go. 1XWW, and you load the molecule. And here it is. This is, so you got a web browser that does this. Now here is a sulfate bound in the active site. So, you could simply select on this molecule, for instance. So I could select this thing by clicking on it, and I say, okay, I want style, I want to make this chemical, I want to make this chemical as a sphere, okay, which is pretty cool. I want to color the protein in a different way. Secondary structure, color secondary structure sheets in yellow. I don't think I did that quite right. Secondary sheets in yellow. Oh, it's not selected. So proteins, I got to unselect this. I don't think this works super well when I'm sharing my screen for some reason. So I'm going to go try it one more time because it's really sheets. I'll go sheets in green. Yeah, it's not working for some reason. Anyway, what I'm going to do is I'm going to stop sharing my screen. I'm going to put into the chat box the link to my document that will help you do any of these things. And I think the best thing to do is simply answer questions, or if you try it, you can share your screen with me and see if I can help you do what you want to do.
Well, if no one has anything specific, Henry, I might be interesting to see. So you showed us, I think that the ICN3D looks pretty cool. I'd love to see just a from start to finish.
Okay.
Let's take a blank LibreText page, and let's go to ICN 3D, and let's
Okay,
make
that sounds good. Let me get this link, and I'm going to paste it in. This is the hemoglobin tutorial one. So I'm going to paste that in, first of all, to the chat box. Hemoglobin tutorial for this is normal and sickle cell. HBS. Okay, and I'll send that. Okay, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to pull up protein. So I'm going to get out of here.
I have a question about the two links that you sent.
Yes.
They look very weird, and I can't really get a web page out of it.
Oh man, so they're on my OneDrive. Maybe I should load them up to a Google Drive. Is there a common Google Drive for this? Because they're on my OneDrive, and I want to see if I can indeed get the links myself. This typically
Somebody says
works.
link works okay for them.
Oh,
So
okay.
It's just my internet's too slow. I'll try again.
Yeah, try again.
Oh yeah.
If not, okay.
That looks good. Thanks.
Okay, so let me show you an example, and I'll just make it really simple. So when you go to, I'm going to open up a brand new window here, ICN 3D. Okay, so I'm just going to go to a brand new ICN 3D window. Here we go. Okay, now the first thing you get is you can input the PDB code. And it wasn't until I started working with ICN 3D that I realized there's all kinds of different codes that use the same lettering system. There's a PDB, there's an MNDB, there's a whole series. So you can go to File. No one can see me what I'm doing, can they? I'm not sharing my screen. I've got to share my screen, right? Sorry.
Yeah, and just to be clear, I think, so I just did a little Google search for ICN 3D, and the first link that came up took me to NCBI's and ICN 3D page.
Right. So can I have to share my screen again here? So let's see. Okay, share screen, and I will see if it works again. Okay, share. Yeah, so if you just do a web search, essentially you should go to something that says ICN 3D/full. I'm going to just do the simplest thing in the world. I'm going to just type in 5-PNT, which is, again, it's a small protein that binds a single ligand. It is a phosphatase, and here it is. This is what displays when you first see it. Okay. Now, when you see something like this, there's a lot of things you can do. I mean, I could, for instance, I want to highlight this residue here. I could do that. So if I click on it, nothing happens, but there's an Alt click. So I can go Alt click. And also, it's so easy because there's other ways to select molecules. You can go into the selection command and say, basically, select on 3D. And it will tell you how you can select the chain, domains, residues, atoms, anything you want. But by default, the residue. So this is a residue labeled MES. And again, I'm just going to do a really simple one. I could show all kinds of stuff like interactions around here. I'm just going to go, this is considered a chemical. So I'm going to go Style, Chemical, and I'm going to turn it into a sphere. When it's got yellow around it, essentially it is, it's highlighted, so it's been selected. So I can step back here and say clear selection now, and then there's all the selections are gone, but it still maintains itself in the sphere. Let's say I want to go, I want to color code this like I tried before. I want to go color based on secondary structure with the sheet in yellow. So now I've got the sheets in yellow. And this is more classically what you would see, kind of like the usual color in rendering. So we got helices in red, random coil in blue. So just to make this super easy, I always like a white background, so I'm going to go Style, Background White. Okay, and that looks like the WebGL image that I showed you before. There's obviously many more things you can do, but I just want to show you how you would pull this off in a LibreText. So now what I can do is a couple things. I can go, this is what's really good for students. I'm going to say File, Share Link. And if I do that, I get, I'm going to see if I can move this thing. Yeah, I get two sort of little windows here. One has a series of commands, but this is really cool. This has a link that if I highlight it, and then I'm going to go into a brand new web page, and I'm simply going to type in that, paste in that link. It will take you back to the exact rendering that you had before. There it is. Now, I could make this really much more complex. I could do all kinds of things. I could label this residue as mess. I could do all kinds of things, but for the purposes of what we're doing, let's not bother doing that. But if I go back here again, what I have here is all the commands that I literally used to make this rendering. And I did it through the GUI, so it's not like I had to type in any commands. I've used programs in which you have to type in a lot of commands, and it gets to be a real pain. Sometimes they work, sometimes they don't. But what I'm going to do is I highlighted those commands, and I'm going to paste it into a Word document. And it tells you a couple of things. This, it's like the link. Here it says that I have a file. It wasn't a PDB file. It was an MMDB file, which has different sorts of information on it. But anyway, here it all is. So I'm just going to hold that there for a while. Now I am going to go to a LibreText page. And so let's just go to LibreText. I'm going to go to my biochem text that I'm working on, my map. I'm going to open in a new tab so I don't lose anything. Okay, and here's the map for LibreText. And let's just say I'm going to go to this chapter, Water and its Role in Life. And I'm just going to put it in this chapter on buffering, just for the fun of it. I'm not making a new page. I'm just going to put it in here. So this is a chapter I have on buffering. I have some interactive graphs in here. In this case, it doesn't show a whole lot. But so there's no other models in here. There's just a bunch of equations, blah, blah, blah. I'm just going to put it here for the fun of it. So I'm going to edit this page. Okay? So I went to Control E for edit, but somehow, let's see, edit, come on, edit, edit, edit. I'll go up here and edit it. For some reason, it doesn't like this. Edit. Okay, here we go. We're going to edit this page. So I'm going to go down the very bottom. And again, just to show you how simple this is, I'm just going to go down here. I'm going to add what I just did. So this is what you do. You can go to Elements and then add templates. So there's a template that Henry A designed, templates, and I'm going to go down to say ICN3D. And I'm going to insert the document. And so this Decky script comes up. So far, this has required no understanding of anything. This is why I can do it most of the time. Okay? So now this is a little different. So this particular template is not as robust as the one I used when I actually embedded in molecules. But a couple things to note right away, that when I did the script, it was an MMDBID. I'm just going to copy this, but first of all, make this yellow because it wasn't just a PDB. And I find out that it's really important that you put the right thing in here. So I'm just going to copy that. I'm going to go back into LibreText. And it's not PDB ID anymore. I'm just going to cut and paste. It's the MMD BID, and the molecule had a different code. It was 5PNT. Okay. Now, you can load up your own PDB file, but I don't think that's worth it. And then you can paste the URL there. I am going to go back to one of my other molecules. This is my other molecules, okay? I'm going to edit this page. I'm going to show you what some of these templates look like. So I'm going to go to, let's go to this one. And you can see that it has MMDBID, but it doesn't have that URL. Doesn't have all that stuff. So I'm going to move this tab so it's close to where we were. So I'm back at the one I just added. There's a URL and options, whereas in this particular script, it doesn't have that URL and options. I have to have Henry maybe update this. So what I'm going to do is simply, I'm going to go here and I'm going to just copy all this stuff. Okay, copy this whole thing and then paste it in. Okay, and I'm going to paste it in here. So it's really I'm just going to get rid of all this. All these other curlicues and stuff will stay. So here's this long scripty thing. Okay, so all I did is change the PDB ID to this format, and I added these things, show commands. I don't want the commands to pop up in the LibreText. I don't want the pop-up window to show. But now these are the commands right here, commands that essentially were present in this particular model, but those aren't the ones I want. I want the ones that I just got out of ICN 3D. So they were here, if you remember, I put them in LibreText. So all you have to do, and you can make much more elaborate renderings, but it's not worth my time now, is it says here there's a C command equals. With my mouse, I'm going to highlight this part of it in yellow. So these are the commands I use to get the rendering I want, okay? I am just going to copy those. Just going to copy those. And then I'm going to just paste them into the template that I have. So it's really reasonably simple. So I got to make sure I'm at the right place. Yeah, no, this is where I want to be. I want to get rid of these because I just copied those from the other one. And I've already, in the document I made, I gave you what these templates look like. So it's just a matter of cutting and pasting yourself. So now, you see, these are the commands I plugged in, and they're surrounded by quotes, and it's just really, I didn't hardly do anything to that structure. So that should be ready to go. I mean, I literally now, hopefully, I'm just going to give this a little title. Example, insert ICN 3D into LibreText.
So Henry, my script looks a little bit different
than mine. So
so yours, in the very first line there, you've got config, and then that last curly brace has got a single quote in front of it. I don't have that single quote.
Let's just see if this works, okay?
Yeah.
Let's just see if it works, but I'm just going to save this and hope it pops up. You know, this is like anything. You do it, and if it doesn't work, then you say, well, maybe something's screwed up and I got to change the script just a little bit. I'm not saying it's as easy as first grade, but once you get the hang of it, it's really easy. It takes a little while to load these things. I'm hoping that it pops up. It's the very bottom, and there it is.
Okay.
And I could have done a lot more with that. I could have done labels. I could have showed hydrogen bonding, you know, blah, blah, blah. I could have done a lot of stuff. So let's go back to the script and see what the difference is. So I just have to now edit this page. And we'll go down here. I mean, again, you can just use the instructions to insert a GL mole, but then there's nothing you can do to render it the way you want to.
Right.
This is so easy once you simply do it. I mean, really. So here's the script for this. And actually, Henry Agnew was the guy that designed these basically templates. And as I said, most of the time, I just sort of cut and paste the stuff that I really need in. But these series of commands here are the ones that ICN3D generates just through the GUI. It's a little bit like putting in the interactive 3D graphs. You know, you do what you want to do, and then you just ask the programs to show you what the commands were, and you copy and plug them in. So, I mean, it looks impressive, but it's actually pretty simple to do. How does yours differ again?
Well, so I'm just loading my page just to see.
Okay.
Yeah, so the default, so I went to Elements and went to Template and inserted Template.
Okay.
And that default script, it's very similar to the default script you pasted, except there's two differences. One, every sort of command word, width, height, resize, and those, mine are not in quotes. They're just there. And then on the first line, after config, where you've got a single quote and then a curly brace.
Yeah.
There's no quote. It's just a curly brace.
Okay. So you know what this is to me? This is a Henry Agnew question. Now, it could be he created a special ICN3D template just for me, for the LibreTexts, for my Leninger map. I'm not certain. I wish he was here, but I don't think he is.
Well, he had something happening today. He couldn't come, but let me just modify mine to look like yours.
Yeah, see what happens. And what I can do, it's in the document. I can paste this into the document. I'm going to paste this script into the document that everybody hopefully has access to.
And now the show command and the close pop-up, are those key, or can I just leave those lines
You
out?
can leave them there. Well, they just make the image that pops up easier, because the script takes up a lot of space, and
I see.
There's pop-up windows that can do the same thing. So so I am going to so this is the Decky script for this. So this is the example. This is on page 8 of this document that hopefully you have instant access to. Example, this is 5PNT demo LibreTexts Fest. What do we call this? Fest?
LibreFest, yeah.
LibreFest, okay. LibreFest, room 1, Jakubowski, and this is 7/20/20. And
I could put command in quotes, and then I could just put empty quotes after that, probably, right?
Yeah. I'm going to get rid of the spaces here too.
Let's see.
And like I said, if you just do this, it's so easy. Now, that's not to say I don't run into problems sometimes, especially when I try to get really sophisticated. When I think of like what people would like to do, I have a ligand bound. You would like to see what's 5 angstroms around it and the interactions. And I can show you what that looks like. I mean, it's so simple to do. So I'm going to go back to, I'm going to open up a new ICN3D. ICN3D. And I'm going to load 5PNT again. And it makes a huge difference how this is loaded. So I'm going to go this MMDIB. I'm going to put in 5PNT. 5PNT. I can't type. 5PNT. Load it. And here we are with the same molecule coming up. So I can do something really simple like this. I'm going to alt-click this to select it. I'm going to say, I want to just save that. Save that selection as lig for ligand. Okay, save. And then what I can do is I'm going to view hydrogen bond and interactions. And so I've selected that. So you can not only see hydrogen bonds, salt bridges, pi cation, I'm going to click off the stacking contact interactions because that just shows everything and it's confusing. So I've already selected the ligand. I'm now going to select everything else, which is here. And I'm going to look at the 3D interactions. And here they are. And you can see the interactions. And I've got everything highlighted. So now I'm going to simply view only selection. And this is the interactions that I'm trying to move this thing for some reason. This ligand is not surrounded by a lot. It's really quite solvent exposed. And then, I like to do things like color. I need to color by atom, and I want to show labels, view. Let's see, style. No, I always view labels per residue. And so you can do this stuff, and that's one of the examples I actually have in this sheet. So it's super easy. And it also pulls up complicated structures really simply. Let's say you want to go to the nucleosome. I don't remember the PDB code for the nucleosome, or one of them, PDB. But I mean, and it is interactive in two ways. One, you right-click on the image that you've embedded in LibreText, and you can then modify it, or you can at least show the exact rendering you want. And oftentimes, I think that's important. I'm one of these people that think that more is not necessarily better. So sometimes I struggle with the Protopedia pages. For like a textbook, there's just too much information. It's a great link, but if you're doing a textbook, if you put so much information and you get bogged down in it, I think that sometimes can be really detrimental. So I'm going to go to nucleosome here. And let's see. Yeah, so I'll go 3LEL. So I'm just going to go and open up a new ICN3D and simply type in here 3LEL. That's right, didn't that right? 3LEL. Load. And this is especially good theoretically for big structures, but it does take a while. Sometimes you put the stuff on the page. I mean, it's really pretty gorgeous. Like this coloring could use some fixing, but really, and if you want to load a whole virus or a ribosome, it's easy to do that too. It takes longer to load it on the page, on the LibreText page, the more things you have in it, and if I go back to, let's see, I got so many tabs open now. Yeah. So this is what I had initially in my examples page. So I'm just going to save this and go back to it. I think you can see it's pretty robust for display. And it'll take a while for this to actually load. And again, I don't know all of IC3N, but I tell you, it is a one cool program. Here's an example. There's other things you can do here. Let's see if I can. Can't see. Show. Okay. Please wait. The host is open. I'm going to click out of there. If I go to Windows here and view sequences and annotations, okay, there's so much information embedded in these structures. So, for instance, here, there's a new window that pops up, and it has Conserved Domains clicked. So it tells you all the domains of the various histone proteins. And you can work with them. You can look at functional sites, interactions, but I'm going to click the off button for a second. Oh, not all. I'm going to get rid of, click this off. And I'm going to click details. Okay. I got to move this, details. Details. I might have too many things. Yeah, here's details. So there you go. Here's histone, probably histone H2A. I don't know which one it is, but you can look. It's so easy if, for instance, if you want to select certain residues, all you do is with your mouse, highlight it and grab it, and it'll highlight it up here. And you can tell which areas are alpha helix and beta sheets. It's just really super easy. And down here, there will be extra things like, what's the DNA, and then in this case, there's these are manganese ions. So it's just so easy to do this stuff. To select, there's multiple ways to select, there's multiple ways to render. And I personally think, have any of you tried embedding JSMol into LibreText? I just find this, once I've gotten used to it, it's fairly straightforward. And I've had my students in my intro chemistry class use ICN3D for that tutorial that I sent the link out to.
So I have a question about that. I saw Bob Belford had a JSMol script where he had some buttons where you could change
Okay.
or highlight. Can you do that here too? Or would you just make two figures and then just go to the next one?
So in this particular one, and I haven't, to be honest, I haven't used a lot of the JSMol in here yet. So for changing the rendering, once you're in LibreText, okay, you'd have to go to these commands. So you can go to commands and change them. Let's just see what happens. Well, I've already set these things up, so it might not be clear. How about here? This is a really complicated molecule. Select, view. How about view? This might paralyze the system. H-bond interactions. No, I'm not going to do that. How about we view the surface? Maybe we can change this to a surface rendering. View surface. How about surface? Is there surface? Let me go down to style. Here we go. Surface type. Let's just go to molecular surface. And let's just see what happens here. So this would be command-based, and I don't know. We'll see if it's working. It might not work. I don't know.
Did you select the protein before?
Well, I don't think I did, but I could try that. Select define set. So we'll go to define sets. How about that? And we'll go to proteins. Okay, there we go. Proteins. All right. So I've selected the proteins. They look like they might have a little yellow highlight. And then we'll go to style, surface type. Let's just see, molecular surface. Yeah, I think maybe that was the. It might take a while. This is a pretty big complex. So with the JSMol, the tutorial.
I just wanted to know here how, if you want to encourage your students to interact with the molecule.
Right.
You know what? One way of doing this by training them to render the surface, and then they can do that.
Right. The other thing is this. So here is this particular molecule right here. I've also put the link into the ICN3D page that gave me that. So with every page, with every molecule I've embedded, I have a link that hopefully will describe the same image only within ICN3D. And hopefully it'll pop up here in a second.
Well,
So
and I think, Henry, I think one of the things Karsten is getting at, or something I'd be interested in too, is one of the nice things about what I think you can do with those JSMol buttons, right, is that there can be a whole series of steps, right? It's just it's a script that gets executed when you click that switch, and so then you can have some pretty complex redefining of how the protein looks. But for the students, it's just click a button or click a button. Right. So I know what you're talking about because I've created a million of those things. So I'm going to go back to, let me just show you. I have, and I have links to those in my book, but this is an older version of the book I had. That from this, I'm creating the LibreText version. And so I have a whole series of JMOL files here. And for instance, if we go to, let's go to the nucleosome. So I have a JSMol nucleosome file. And so this is what you're talking about, right? You have a series of buttons that you can click and change the renderings, correct? Yeah, exactly.
Yeah,
so
right.
Is there an analogous thing that you can do with the ICN3D?
There is not, and so I mean, that's useful. And it's sort of what I think is that I think it's great to have some of these, and you can't do it with IC3N. At the same time, you can easily have this. I think it's important for the students to learn how to do it on their own, you know? So it's a pedagogical and philosophical question, because this is really kind of a passive approach, you know? I mean, I could just view the DNA. I could see all kinds of cool things, you know? I mean, so you can change the renderings and looking at the DNA. And I like this particular rendering right here. You can see the major and minor grooves and the histone proteins in the middle. So, and I think that's cool, and that's really useful. I think one can make renderings like this within ICN 3D and put them in. At the same time, clicking a button, the ICN 3D is pretty straightforward to enable people to understand how to make these things. So there's a balance, I think, between how much you want to give with simple clicks to change renderings, and if you want to ask them to do some simple things through ICN 3D. So later on, as I've morphed in my life, that's why I think Protopedia is just too much. It's just too much, you know. Could you send me the link? Could anybody send me the links to the LibreTexts ones that have the JMOL versions with these buttons to click, so I can look at them?
So it's very rudimentary, but
yeah.
I know once you have that capability, you can make something more complicated. I'll try to find it.
If you could find it and send it to me, you know, I'll try playing around with it, embedding it. But you know, I spent like 30 years having students make these JSMOL tutorials, JMOL and JSMOL tutorials, and I had to make them. And I think that was useful, but maybe it was a little too sophisticated because they spent all the time doing the coding. So at the other end is giving them a JSMOL tutorial and having them click buttons. And I think select number of buttons would be good. Having too many, like are found in Protopedia, it's just too much for a basic textbook. So then the counterbalance that is the ICN 3D, in which you could embed the rendering you want right away, which students could get to by clicking a button. So in a way, it saves on a click. You'd have to embed more than one to get multiple renderings, so that would take a little extra space. But by giving them the link to the IC3ND display as well, then they're readily able to, I think, manipulate it in ways that they can see all kinds of information and show it. So there's a lot of ways to do it. I would like to see, because I've been working on this within LibreTexts for only about a year and a bit now. And I'd like to see what's available now in LibreTexts within JMOL with those radio buttons to click. I just want to see how easy that is to do now. I think, you know, each program I think has its advantages, strengths, and weaknesses, and partly this is so easy to create the rendering you want and put it in. This is one of the things that I've struggled with.